Hi, everybody. It's our last day for our book club, and both of my puppies have joined us. You've already met Jax, right? Jax has been reading with us the whole time. Pugs of the Frozen North. Pam's been kind of off to the side, but she's been joining us as well. I'm giving him some treats. And today is the last day. We have the last two chapters. And if you remember where we left off, Sika and Shen and some of the other writers had made it to, where are you going? Had made it all the way up to see the Snow Father. And that's where we start. We get to see the Snow Father. What do you think? Does he look like he's friendly? Or does he look like he's scary? Chapter 13. For a moment, nobody spoke except for Sir Basil, who said, "Me! I'm the winner, of course." But he was so muffled inside the box that the Snow Father didn't hear him. In the end, it was Shen who said, "None of us is the winner." "That's true," said Sika. "We all got here together, and none of us could have made it without the others. I'd still be washing up for the Yetis if Snowbot hadn't gotten aroused Shen." "We'd all be Yetis if Shen hadn't rescued us," said Shackleton. "And I'd have fallen into the chasm if Shen and Sika hadn't helped me," Helga said. "They were very brave." "And the Pugs would have frozen if Helga hadn't nestled them in her beard. And then we would all have been blown up by Sir Basil's rocket if Sideplate hadn't so kindly saved us." "So none of us is the winner," said Shen, sadly. "Not really." The Snow Father's wide, white grin grew wider still. "Or maybe all of you are the winners," he said. "For the first time ever, I declare the race a tie. So come inside and let us discuss the matter of prizes." They followed him through the gate in the high white wall into a garden. Green was the last color they had expected to see here at the top of the world, but green was all around them, the glowing greens of grass and trees speckled with red and golden flowers. "How did you grow all these plants?" said Shackleton Jones. "I didn't grow them," said the Snow Father. "I made them out of snow." "Snow?" said Sideplate, reaching out to run his hand over a tree trunk. "Everything you see here is made of snow," said the Snow Father. "The special anything snow that falls only here at the top of the world. Shape it into whatever you want, and it will become real." That's pretty cool, isn't it? Snow that you can make into anything you want. He strode over to a drift of snow that had gathered against the wall of his igloo. Kneeling, he scooped some up and made it into a little snowbird. "There," he said. As they watched, the white bird blushed and darkened, opened its black bead eyes, and flittered away to perch singing on the branch of a tree. That's the dogs. They're so excited about this. "Whatever you like," he said. For a moment, everyone was too amazed to speak. Look, that's a pretty cool picture. That's the Snow Father letting the bird go. Then, with whoops and cheers, the travelers all threw themselves at that mound of snow and started to help themselves to clumps of it and shape those clumps into, well, whatever they could imagine. Shen then made a little snow ship, which turned into the most perfect little real ship he had ever seen, complete with rigging and anchor chains and all sorts of things he hadn't been able to sculpt in snow, but the snow knew he had wanted anyway. He put it in his pocket and set to work making a snow treasure chest, filling it with snowy diamonds. "Ah, that's what Sir Basil's father did when he came here all those years ago," said Sideplate. He was busy making a snow bowler hat to replace his own, which was looking a bit battered after all his adventures. Squirrels. See, look. So you can see them all making their snow things. There's snow treasure chest and snow bones and snow ship, snow hat. Oh, I wonder who he's making. Meanwhile, Shackleton Jones was making snow cogs and snow wheels, the snowy parts for some snow machine, and Helga was sculpting a big heap of snow into the shape of a polar bear, which shook itself, roared, and went running off across the lawn to play with Snowdrop and Slush Puppy and the 66 pugs. "You could never have too many friendly polar bears," said Helga. There she is making her polar bear. And Sika, she just sat and watched, and the Snow Father sat beside her, chuckling at the delight of the others as they busied themselves making snow things. Always the same, he said, ever since Uka first came here and discovered the anything snow. What did she make? Asked Sika. Ah, said the Snow Father, she was feeling rather lonely, having come so far by herself, so she made a snowman. She didn't even know it was anything snow she was making it from, but she lay down to sleep beside him, and when she woke up... He had come alive? Asked Sika. The Snow Father smiled and nodded, remembering. Let me show you that picture. See, look, there's Sika and the Snow Father talking. And what about you, young Sika? He asked. What will you make? I don't know, said Sika. The thing I want isn't a thing. I came here to ask you if you could make my grandpa better. Oh, my dear, said the Snow Father gently. I'm afraid that is a bit beyond me. But you grant wishes, don't you? That's what all the stories say. They say you give the winner their heart's desire. Oh, I think there's been a bit of a mix-up, then, said the Snow Father. I am the guardian of the anything snow, but I cannot grant wishes. If people have gotten their heart's desire by coming here, then either their heart's desire was something they could make out of snow, or it was something that they found along the way, like your grandpa did. Do you remember my grandpa? Of course I do. Such a brave boy he was, and I'd hoped he'd win, but Sir Basil's father beat him in the end. I suspect Sir Basil's father was a cheat like his son, but it did not matter. Your grandpa didn't need to fill his pockets with snow jewels. Just the journeying here was prize enough for him, just to see all the wonders of the true winter and go home with stories to tell. Such stories, said Sika, and when he dies, there will be no more. No, no, said the Snow Father, all old things die in the end, but not stories. Stories go on, and new ones are always being born. Now join the others before the snow is all used up. So Sika ran to join the fun. Shen had finished his chest of snow diamonds and squeezed the lid shut, and he was busy making 66 snow bones for the 66 pugs. Sika helped, and while she was at it, she thought of a few things she'd always wanted too, and together they made those out of snow. And then everyone remembered how hungry they were, and they started making snow food that they carried inside and ate in a huge feast beside the Snow Father's roaring snow log fire. And while they ate, they all talked about what they were going to do next. They were all eating. They made everything out of snow. What would you make to eat out of snow? I'd make pancakes, I think. That'd be easy. I've got my wish, said Snaggletooth Jones. Snowbot has collected enough data and samples of these strange types of snow that I'll be kept busy for years. I'll be famous. I'll probably get a snowflake named after me. I'm going to call in at the Lost Hope on my way home. It seems to me that what those Yetis really need is an electric dishwasher, and I'm just the man to make it for them. I'm going to buy Sir Basil's stately home, said Sideplate, and settle down and live there. If Sir Basil grows back to normal size, I shall let him stay on as my butler. If not, he can move into one of the houses on my model train set. Humph, said Sir Basil grumpily. He was sitting on a matchbox on the table, nibbling at a peanut, which was the size of a roast turkey to him. If it hadn't been for you interfering pest, I'd have won the race and been the richest man in the world, not the tiniest. Oh, but inside you were always a small man. Oh, wrong voice. Oh, but inside you were always a small man, said the Snow Father. You have just shrunk to fit yourself. The houses on my model train set are very nice, said Sideplate encouragingly. You can settle down there. And you'll certainly be the richest man in that world, so in a way you will have gotten your wish. Well, I'm going to settle down too, said Helga Hammerfest, who had talked quietly and seriously with the Snow Father while the others were still eating. I'm going to stay right here. That's my wish. It's the perfect place for polar bears, and for me too. There was never enough winter in the world for my liking. What about you, Shen? Asked the Snow Father. What's your wish? I'm going to take all these diamonds back to Snowdovia and buy a fantastic new ship, said Shen. But now that he had the money to buy a ship, he felt a bit sad about it. He would be sorry to sail away from Sika. And when he looked at Sika, he felt even sadder, because although she had a nice new snow-made hat and things, she hadn't come all this way for those. She had come so the Snow Father could save her grandpa, and that was the one thing the Snow Father couldn't do. After the feast they slept, a good night's sleep in white beds as deep and soft as snowdrifts. And when they woke, it was time to go home. Out in the Snow Father's garden, Sideplate was strapping Sir Basil's lunchbox firmly to his sled, with Sir Basil buzzing inside it like a well-dressed wasp. Shackleton Jones was preparing his own sled for takeoff. He had fitted it with wings and propellers that he had made out of snow, and he was being helped by Snowbot, and by a new robot called Snowbot 2, whom Snowbot had made out of snow. Helga was walking in the Snow Father's garden, watching her polar bears play on the lawn. "This is the place for me," she said happily. "Ever since I was a little girl, I've wanted to come here and to stay. No more dreary springs and summers for me. Winter is best. Winter glitters." Shen and Sika went to where they had left Grandpa's sled. It was looking rather the worse for wear after its long journey. The leashes that tied the pugs to it were tattered and frayed. "It's a long way for Small Paw," said the Snow Father, watching while they started arranging the little dogs. That was true. The pugs did not look happy at the thought of the long journey that lay ahead. "But we have to go," said Sika. "It's lonely here, but we don't want to stay. It's lovely here, but we don't want to stay forever." Like Helga. Then she looked at the Snow Father and said, "I've been thinking about my wish." "You know I cannot give you your heart's desire," said the Snow Father. "I know," she said, "but could you maybe give my grandpa his heart's desire instead?" "And what would that be?" "To see you one more time," said Sika. The Snow Father went quiet and thoughtful while he was thinking. Shackleton Jones's sled went soaring overhead, with Shackleton and the Snowbots waving from the windows. It circled the Igloo Palace once and roared away into the south-southwest. I didn't show you the new sled. That's Shackleton Jones' new sled. That's pretty cool. "That's the only way to travel," said Snow Father approvingly, shading his eyes to watch the flying sled as it dwindled among the northern lights. He turned and ran back to his garden, to a fresh fall of anything snow that had appeared overnight. Shen and Sika stood watching while he began shaping the snow into six big shapes. When he was finished, 6 huge elk shook themselves to life and started nibbling the grass, while the Snow Father made 6 red harnesses for them and led them outside to where Shen and Sika's sled was waiting. "Your dogs have run farther than any pugs ever ran before," he said as he started tying the elk to the sled. "It would be a pity to make them run all the way back, too." There's barely enough room on the sled for Shen and Sika and the Snow Father and Shen's snow treasure chest and 66 pugs, but they all squeezed on somehow. When everyone was aboard, the Snow Father shouted something to his elk, and off they set, galloping across the snow with the sled rushing behind them, until the hiss of the sledge runners suddenly faded, and Shen looked over the side and saw that they were flying. The elk had unfolded great tawny wings and were flapping southward. The Snow Father's palace and its green ring of gardens was falling away below, with Helga Hammerfest waving and Sideplate looking up and waving too as he set out on his own journey. Wow, the sled started flying. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Shen waved back, but pretty soon the sled was so high that he didn't think they could see him anymore. He could see them, though. He could see everything: the Igloo Palace, the abyss with its broken bridges, and the 50 different kinds of snow. He could see far away the Lost Hope, and farther still, cracking deep in the dark forest, where the pugs yipping had shaken down those clumps of snow. He could see all the wideness and whiteness of the frozen north spread out under the northern lights like a map, or the iced top of a gigantic Christmas cake. And the Snow Father laughed and tugged on the elk's reins, and the sled flew south toward the faraway twinkling windows of Snowdovia. Look at that picture. Wow, that's pretty cool, huh? Chapter 14. It was midnight at the Po of Ice. On the big bed in the room behind the counter, Grandpa lay dreaming. His bed was a sled again, carrying him over the shiny ice, under the glimmering green canopies of the northern lights. Suddenly he opened one eye. Was that wings he heard, passing across the sky above the shop, settling on the snow outside? Somewhere a door opened, and quiet as quiet, a breath of cold stole into the warm room. The tiny sounds of tiptoed feet on floorboards. Grandpa opened the other eye. "Oh, hello there. I thought you were a dream." "I am not," said the Snow Father, filling the room like a kindly shadow, stooping to fit his bigness under the slope of the ceiling. There's Grandpa and the Snow Father. They look a lot alike, don't they? "Then my bed is really a sled?" asked Grandpa. "Am I at the top of the world again?" "No," said the Snow Father. "I have come south for a change. Helga Hammerfest and her bears will keep an eye on things at the pole while I'm away. Sika tells me that you wanted to see me again." "I wanted to come to you," said Grandpa. "I wanted to make that journey one last time. But I know I'm too old now for journeys. I will make do with the stories of Sika's journey instead." "And I've got such stories to tell," she said, as she climbed up onto the bed to put her arms around Grandpa's neck. "So many adventures, such things we've seen, me and Shen." And they started to tell him. The Snow Father stood listening, and after a while Sika's mom came in, woken by the voices, and there they all sat, the whole night long, while the northern lights shone in very brightly through the windows, and Grandpa and Sika and Shen and the Snow Father swapped their stories. And toward morning, Grandpa fell asleep, still smiling at the memories of the things they told him. Deeper and deeper he sank into his dreams, and the sound of his snoring grew fainter and fainter, until at last it faded altogether, and they knew he would not wake up. They were sad and silent for a while, until the Snow Father said, "Come." "Come where?" said Sika's mother. The Snow Father opened the door on the far side of Grandpa's bedroom. The cold came into the room. He went around behind Grandpa's bed and started to push it toward the open door. Shen and Sika ran to help. They did not know why he was pushing the bed outside, but they were sure he must have a good reason. After a moment, Sika's mom joined in too. Together the four of them eased the bed outside. It looked even more like a sled standing there in the glittering snow. The Snow Father stooped and scooped up a handful of snow. He looked at it and smiled. "I thought so," he said. "What is it?" they asked. "It is my favorite of all of the 50 kinds of snow," he said. He breathed on the clump of snow that was in his hand, and it came apart in soft white flakes. The flakes drifted into the air like loose feathers from a down comforter. It took Shen a moment to realize what was strange about them. Do you see what's strange about it? "They're falling upward," he said. The flakes were too light to go straight up. Every breath of air blew them off course, but they were definitely rising. And all across the snowy yard, outside the Po of ice, more flakes were lifting, detaching themselves from the drifts and banks and whispering softly up into the night. Like a blizzard in reverse, the upward falling snow poured up into the night, and the snow that was under Grandpa's bed caught against the slats and underneath the mattress and kept rising, so the bed was lifted with it, turning and trembling like a boat that feels the tug of the tide. "Where is it going?" asked Sika. "He's going on that one last journey he always wished for," said her mother. "That's right," said the Snow Father. "He's going to places even I have never seen." "Goodbye, Grandpa," Sika whispered. Up and up the wild snow fell, a column of dancing flakes like sparks from a cold fire, with the bed born in the heart of it. Up and up, slowly dwindling into the height of the sky, where the northern lights danced so brightly. Shen and Sika's mom joined hands and watched it go. The Snow Father watched with them for a little while, then he went back to where the sled was waiting. See, there's the Snow Father and Shen and Sika. And up. There's Grandfather on his bed. Shen and Sika and her mom stood and watched the bed as it dwindled into the heights of the sky. Long after it was lost to sight, they stood there, staring after it. The last flakes of the upside-down blizzard fluttered up around them, leaving the ground around the Po of ice with only a thin covering of ordinary snow, and suddenly Shen felt very lonely, because he knew that his adventure was almost over and that soon it would be time to leave this place. But then, as if she knew what he was thinking, Sika's mom put her hand on his shoulder and said, "I've been thinking, Shen. I think if you want to, that you should stay here. You and your 66 pugs. I mean to open the Po-of-Ice properly again and start a hot chocolate cafe and rent out rooms to people who come to see the Northern Lights. Then Shen knew what his heart's desire had been all along. Not a new ship, a new life, here in this cozy old snowy post office. I can help, he said. We could start a Pug Power parcel delivery service, and we'll use the treasure from the Snowfather's garden to pay for a new roof and a new S and T and F. Oh, said Stika suddenly, the Snowfather! They ran to where the sled had been. On the snow in a sleepy heap, 66 pugs snuggled under furs and blankets. There stood Shen's treasure chest and the other treasure they'd brought back with them. But the sled was gone, and the Snowfather with it, back to his home in the North Pole. There's the pugs. He didn't even say goodbye, said Shen. He didn't need to, said Sika. In the silence of the night, they heard a soft drip, drip, drip. The fringe of icicles that draped the eaves in the Po-of-Ice were weeping, melting tears. There's a change in the weather coming, said Sika's mother. True winter is going away, said Sika sadly. It'll just be an ordinary winter now, and then spring. There won't be another true winter for a whole lifetime. But Shen didn't feel sad, because at least he'd seen all those things, the Kraken and the Yetis and the 50 different kinds of snow. At least he'd gone to the top of the world and met the Snowfather. And now he was going to live here in this strange place among these funny, stilty houses. He was going to come to know these hills and woods and fjords and all their different seasons, all their different moves, and maybe, when a lifetime had passed and true winter returned, he'd meet the Snowfather again. But until then, what a lifetime it was going to be. And that's the end. Shen found a home and he found a family. Isn't that sweet? And that's the end of our story and the end of our time together. So I won't see you again this year, and I'm going to miss all of you. Some of you I'll see next year, hopefully. And those of you who are going on to the high school, I wish you the best of luck. Have a good summer. I'll give you one last tour of the pups.